"You're a defender of oppressive hierarchies," accused the student, and everyone waited to see how Jordan Peterson, the controversial professor and psychologist, would respond.
So the idea that I've put thought into this is perhaps an optimistic one, but as you might imagine, you've been a topic of conversation on this campus a lot in the past week or so. Certainly.
The incident took place at a university event where Jordan Peterson was invited to speak. These events are often filled with students eager to engage in discussions about various topics, ranging from psychology to politics. On this particular occasion, a student seized the opportunity to confront Peterson with a lengthy and complex question. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as the student began speaking, clearly intending to challenge Peterson on several fronts.
Among a lot of us who discuss politics, and one of the things that sort of united people who like and dislike a lot of your ideas is that we appreciate your defense of free speech, and we appreciate you coming here to talk about it with us.
The student's question was a multi-layered attempt to frame Peterson's views in a negative light. It was evident that the student had prepared extensively, hoping to catch Peterson off guard. The question began with a seemingly respectful acknowledgement of Peterson's defense of free speech, but it quickly turned into a pointed critique.
In the course of this lecture, you called the authors of Facebook posts demons and totalitarians. In past events, you've called them things like neo-Marxists, cultural Marxists. You've called them, I believe, a fifth column that is committing treason against the West.
The student pointed out that Peterson had previously referred to certain groups and individuals using strong terms like demons and totalitarians. The student suggested that these words were more than just temperamental differences and instead indicated a substantive and inflammatory stance.
Gender, of class, so on, though emphatically not of race. And so it seems that...
I haven't talked about defense of traditional hierarchies in terms of gender and class. That's not true.
Well, you've talked about hierarchies in society. You've talked
about...
Yeah,
that's true. I have done that, but I haven't...
The student claimed that Peterson defended traditional social hierarchies, particularly those related to gender and class. The implication was that Peterson's views were not merely observations, but endorsements of these hierarchies, which the student considered oppressive. The student noted that, unlike other intellectuals, Peterson seemed to have a comprehensive political program. This was seen as problematic because it allegedly politicized the issue of free speech, aligning it with conservative and right-wing ideologies.
Professor Van Dyke addressed the distinction between you and Jonathan Haidt, and you mentioned this as sort of a temperamental one. And I think, I'm sure that's true to some extent, but I noticed you've made a lot of more sort of substantively inflammatory claims.
The student drew a comparison between Peterson and another academic, Jonathan Haidt, suggesting that Haidt was less inflammatory and more focused on free speech in a neutral manner. The question implied that Peterson's approach was more divisive and politicized.
Yeah.
Question: the student made a concerted effort to portray Peterson as a defender of oppressive social hierarchies. By focusing on Peterson's discussions of hierarchies, the student tried to imply that Peterson supported the idea that some people should naturally be at the top while others remain at the bottom. This approach aimed to frame Peterson's academic observations as endorsements of inequality, particularly regarding gender and class. For instance, the student referenced Peterson's discussions about the Pareto distribution, a principle suggesting that a small number of people often gain the majority of rewards in various systems. The student insinuated that by talking about this distribution, Peterson was justifying societal structures that keep certain groups in power while marginalizing others.
Fine, but it's just too much. Like, I can't keep it straight.
Do you think that your behavior risks politicizing it, and do you think that politicization is justified?
I think my behavior...
The tension in the room was palpable as the student concluded the question. The audience was keenly aware of the underlying attempt to put Peterson on the defensive. The student's effort to frame Peterson as a champion of traditional, and by implication, oppressive hierarchies was clear. This was not just a question, it was a strategic move to challenge Peterson's reputation and ideological stance.
First of all, I don't think that these issues are the same. I don't think they're the same at all. I mean, I've been thinking about the pronoun thing.
One of Peterson's most significant stances is his defense of free speech. He argues that free speech is fundamental to a healthy society because it allows for the exchange of ideas and helps individuals think clearly. Peterson believes that without the ability to speak freely, society cannot progress or solve its problems effectively. He often points out that limiting speech, even with good intentions, can lead to authoritarianism and the suppression of important ideas.
Mechanisms for deciding whether someone's a valid representative of a community, and that generally involves democratic voting. I've received at least 20 letters from transsexual people who are on my side, and by the way, 0 from others, believe it or not.
Peterson is also well known for his critique of political correctness. He contends that the push for political correctness, especially in academic and cultural institutions, stifles honest discourse and creates an environment where people are afraid to speak their minds, which can hinder true understanding and problem solving. Another key area where Peterson has made his mark is his discussion of social hierarchies. He often refers to the idea of the Pareto distribution, which suggests that in any given domain, a small number of people will end up with the majority of the rewards. However, he clarifies that observing the existence of hierarchies is not the same as endorsing them unconditionally. Instead, he believes they need to be understood and navigated, not blindly attacked or defended.
Laws in Canada that you dislike, that they institutionalize false facts into the law, but it seems to me that an absolutist defense of free speech makes no preference as to true or false. The point is...
Peterson's public opposition to Bill C-16 in Canada was a significant turning point in his career. The bill aimed to add gender identity and gender expression to the list of prohibited ground of discrimination under the Canadian Human Rights Act.